Sia never thought the Arctic would smell like life. The air around the International Genetic Seed Vault was supposed to be sterile, frozen, sharp, and empty. But that morning, as the pale light crept across the snow, something in the wind carried the faint scent of damp soil. It was almost sweet. It was almost wrong. He told himself it was just his imagination, that maybe he'd been in the lab too long inhaling fertilizer samples. But still, when he exhaled, he saw something move under the frost. Just a flicker, a trick of the eye. Sian had been in Svalbard less than a week. A bright-eyed biochem intern from Singapore who thought saving the world mean cataloging barley. You will be guarding the future of biodiversity, the invitation letter said. He'd pictured white lab coats, quiet corridors, maybe a reindeer sighting, if he got lucky. Instead, he got blizzards, sleep deprivation, and a team of Norwegians who ran on black coffee and existential humor. "Welcome to the end of the world," Bujrun had joked on his first day, slapping him on the back. Sian smiled awkwardly, not sure if he meant the location or the job description. The vault itself was a miracle of human engineering. A steel wedge buried deep in permafrost, its entrance glowing blue like an altar to the future. Inside were millions of seeds, nearly frozen, coded, and sealed. Humanity's backup drive. Sian often stood in the long main corridor just to listen to the hum of the refrigeration systems. It was the sound of safety. Then came the storm. It rolled in on Tuesday night, howling over the glaciers like an animal. The lights flickered once, twice, then died completely. Backup systems clicked, failed, then fell silent. For 2 hours, the most secure seed storage on Earth sat in total darkness. The team gathered in the mess hall with headlamps and instant coffee, joking about apocalypse movies. "Imagine," Ingrid said, the lead botanist, "if our plants decided to grow back without us." They laughed. Sian didn't. When power returned, everything seemed fine. Systems rebooted, temperature logs normalized, and no alarms sounded. But in the forgotten corner of the genetic testing wing, a few vials had tipped over. A nutrient solution, experimental, hyperreactive, slipped onto a tray with mixed seeds. No one noticed. The next morning, Sian's alarm went off at 6:30. He stretched out, put on his parka, and tugged through the snow to the entrance tunnel. The sky was cold, endless grey. The keypad beeped under his gloved fingers. The steel doors opened, releasing a faint breath of warm, moist air. He stopped. That wasn't right. The vault's climate was supposed to be cold and bone dry, not humid. And that smell again, stronger now, earthly and floral. He stepped inside. Condensation dripped down the walls. The air felt alive. As he walked, his boots squelched faintly on the metal floor. That's when he saw it. Something green, peeking from beneath a sealed lab door. At first, he thought it was a cable. Then it pulsed. A single vine, thin as a finger, slid an inch across the floor toward him. He froze. "That's not funny," he muttered, backing up. The vine twitched again. a groaning noise came from behind the door, low and wooden, like something stretching after a long sleep. The hinge rattled. The door bulged outward. Xian turned and ran. By the time he reached the control room, the others were already staring at the monitors. Every camera feed showed something impossible. Green veins crawling along the corridors, roots pushing through walls. "Good morning," he panted. "The plants are moving, like literally moving." Ingrid didn't look up. "We've noticed," she said. Vajron tapped on his keyboard, trying to access temperature logs. "It's not just one species," he said. "Look at the cell samples. Oak, wheat, moss, orchids, even coffee beans. They are all merging." Ingrid whispered, "Some kind of spontaneous hybridization?" A loud crack shook the room. The ceiling went bulged. Something wet and fibrous sneaked through. Xian flinched back as a tendril slid past the light fixture. "Is that breathing?" he whispered. It wasn't his imagination. The floor rose slightly, then fell. The entire vault was pulsing. They ran for the emergency hatch just as the main door burst open behind them. A wave of roots slammed through, curling and splitting metal like paper. Outside, snow fell in thick sheets. The group stumbled out into the biting cold, coughing steam. Behind them, the mountain moved. The vault's steel entrance twisted open as something colossal pushed from beneath. The earth itself, cracking as green, shot upward. A tree, if you could still call it that, was forcing its way out of the glacier. Its bark shimmered like ice. Its leaves glowed faintly under the dim sun. Within hours, it towered over the ridge, alive and ravenous. "This is unreal," Xian said, staring it in disbelief. "We just made the Arctic rainforest." Ingrid shook her head, "more like the Arctic apocalypse." A research drone buzzed overhead, scanning the structure. A branch lashed out faster than thought, snatching it mid-air and pulling it into the trunk. The sound that followed was wet, grinding. Xian's stomach turned. "Did it just eat that?" Bujron muttered, "Guess it's upgrading from photosynthesis." They retreated to auxiliary bunker at the base of the ridge. A reinforced shelter stocked with tools, oxygen, and freeze-dried rations. Inside, Ingrid drew diagrams on a clipboard, her hands shaking only slightly. "Cutting or burning won't work," she said. "Its growth rate outpaces the physical damage. We have to attack its metabolism." Xian frowned. "Meaning?" "Oxygen deprivation," she replied. "We starve it." Bojron gestured around. "We're surrounded by air. How are we suffocate a mountain?" "By binding every molecule of O2 we can reach," Ingrid said grimly. "We can aerosolize a scavenger compound using the vaporizer unit in the lab. But the lab is inside that," she told, pointing at the huge mutant tree. The room went silent. Outside, the ground trembled again, softly, like a heartbeat under snow. Hours later, under a grey sky, they made their move. Xian led the way through the old maintenance tunnel that Thomas, the janitor, saw still connected to the lower wing. The passage was half collapsed and slick with frost. The deeper they went, the warmer it got. Then the frost disappeared entirely. The walls gleamed wet, lined with something that wasn't metal anymore. Roots, veins, skin. Cyan's flashlight flickered over a shaped head, round, suspended from the ceiling. A cocoon. Inside it, they saw a night guard, alive, breathing slowly inside the translucent web. It's keeping them alive, Cyan whispered. Anya, the cryotech, swallowed hard. For food? Ingrid shook her head. For energy. It's feeding on that. They pressed on. The tunnel ended behind the laboratory. If it could still be called that, the walls were wood now, pulsing faintly like lungs. Cyan touched the surface. It was warm, alive. How do we open it? Thomas asked. Cyan's eyes landed on a carbon dioxide canister. We trick it, he said. He reached a crude sprayer with duct tape and tubing, aimed it at the wall, and released a white hiss. The bark recollided instantly, curling back like burned skin. Ah, it worked. Don't celebrate, Pujrun warned. It's temporary. They showed their way through as the wall closed again behind them. The lab glowed green. Machinery hummed faintly, wrapped in vines. Beakers floated in sticky sap. Cyan stared at the mess. It's like the jungle's running the experiment now. Ingrid pointed to a vaporizer unit. We can reroute it to release our compound. They scavenged chemicals, mixed them fast. Carbon binders, nitrogen stabilizers, ethanol. Anything volatile enough to steal oxygen. The final liquid shimmered like molten silver. Cyan muttered, Looks like mint tea. Hope it's poison. They poured it into the vaporizer and flipped the switch. A low hiss filled the lab. Outside, through the window, the massive roots began to twitch. The color drained from the bark, turning gray. The whole vault shuddered. It's working, Ayana breathed. Then the ceiling split. A tendril the size of a tree trunk flashed through, flinching glass and steel. Cyan ducked, grabbed a crowbar, jammed it into the vent to keep the vapor system steady. The tendril wrapped around his leg, dragging him upward. A little help, he yelled. Thomas swung an oxygen tank, smashing the tendril loose. Cyan hit the floor, coughing but alive. The vapor spread through the ducts. Outside, the roar faded. The light dimmed. The tree's massive frame stiffened, cracking like frozen ice. Then silence. By morning, rescue teams arrived. What they found was a frozen monument, a dead colossus of bark and crystal rising from the ice, still as stone. Inside, workers were found cocooned but alive, slowly waking as the vines crumbled into dust. Cyan sat outside the bunker, wrapped in a thermal blanket, watching the sky shift pink over the horizon. Ingrid joined him, handing him a mug of lukewarm coffee. You handled yourself well, she said. He gave a shaky laugh. I survived. That counts. Pujrun approached, holding a small vial. Inside was a single seed, metallic green, pulsing faintly. Found this in the lab, he said. Dormant, maybe. Ingrid frowned. It goes into quarantine. Cyan's eyes it wearily. Oh, we burn it. Pujrun smiled. Where's your curiosity? Traumatized, Cyan replied. As the rescue helicopter lifted them from the ice, the dead tree stretched beneath them, grey, beautiful, terrible. Cian looked down at the vault, half buried, half eaten, and whispered, "Guess I can add Fought Mutant Forest to my resume." Ingrid smiled faintly. "Congratulations, intern. You survived your first week." He leaned back, eyes closing. Next week, he muttered, "I'm sticking to paperwork." Far below, the mountain slept again. The last fragment of bark cracked under the cold, and the seed inside Bujron's pocket pulsed once, softly, like a heartbeat waiting for spring.